Good morning, everybody. So I'm Jeff Kasselman. I'm really happy to be here with all of you this morning. Thank you for getting up early and coming out. You're clearly interested in the future, a little bit or a lot, and that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to just jump right in. I'm going to move pretty quick. I like to start with some quotes, or I like to use quotes when I talk, just for context and shaping the discussion. So let me start with something really significant from one of the great think tanks in the world, World Economic Forum. How many people follow World Economic Forum? A couple people, yeah? No, that's good. They really put out some really great content. Last year they said we stand on the brink of change that we've never seen before. Its scale, its scope, its complexity, its trajectory, the transformation will be unlike anything we've ever seen before. And that's why we're here talking about it. Another really hard-hitting quote from somebody that you should know, and if you don't know, Ray Kurzweil is probably the greatest living inventor of our time, but he's also a lot of other things as well. He predicts the future. I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with him. We don't agree on everything. He thinks he can live forever. I do not think I can live forever. So, we do depart a little bit, but he's a pretty brilliant guy, and he says, in the next 100 years, we won't experience 100 years of progress. We'll have exponential progress. We'll have 20,000 years of progress in the next 100 years. It's really, really hard to comprehend that. But that's what we're going to talk about today. So here's the agenda. The path to 2050. Are there X factors? You bet. We'll cover a couple of those. And then I'll finish with 10 specific insights and opportunities relative to Milwaukee County and Milwaukee and the region. Based on all the things that we talk about. And of course, there's some Q&A. Please text your questions to the number that they gave you. I'm sorry, I don't know the number, but hopefully you'll have some questions. Okay, so the right place to start is actually to go back in time to 1960. I'm going to play a little video for you. Listen, it's not the best quality, but listen to the words. This is 63 years ago, and this was the vision of the future then.
By the year 2000, the United States will have a 30-hour work week and month-long vacations as the rule. A lot of this new free time will be spent at home, and this console controls a full array of equipment to inform, instruct, and entertain the family of the future. We could watch a football game or a movie shown in full color on our big 3D television screen. This console provides a summary of news relayed by satellite from all over the world. I might check the latest weather. A telephone is this instrument here. If I want to see the people I'm talking with, I just turn the button and there they are. With equipment like this in the home of the future, we may not have to go to work. The work would come to us. Work would come to us. Work would come to us.
Right? Not bad for 63 years ago. I hope I get about 50% of it right. Please invite me back in 2050 and we'll talk about how I did. How many people expect to be alive in 2050, by the way? It's a pretty important question. Okay, then this is for you. Some of you didn't raise your hands. I'm kind of curious about that, but we'll cover that at another time. All right, so how is this possible? Why is this happening? What drives it? I'd like to start with Moore's Law. You've probably heard this before, but some guy named Gordon Moore, in 1965, figured out that computing power was doubling roughly every 18 to 24 months. And you can be a little bit more scientific about it, but let's boil it down and make it simple. That means as computing power is doubling, the price point is being cut in half. Right? They work in tandem. Well, that's now happened 30 times. We're on the verge of 31 and 32. That's exponential by definition. It's like if I take 30 steps, right, I go 30 meters. But if I take 30 exponential steps, right, I go 1 billion meters. Okay? 50 folds of paper. Fold it again, fold it again, fold it again, fold it again. If you could, you'd have enough paper to go from the Earth all the way to the sun. If you have an Apple iPhone i14, I think it's the latest version in your pocket, you have almost 12 billion transistors in that phone with a computing power capable of doing 11 trillion operations per second or more on your person, in your phone, Pretty incredible, right? That's what he's talking about. If you plot it, this is what it looks like. It's got this really long period where it's flat. It's deceptive in nature. It looks linear. And that's where people get tripped up. They think, oh, this isn't a big deal. It's not any different than anything else. And then all of a sudden, it doubles and it doubles again and it doubles again. It turns the corner, right? And it shoots skyward. And that's exactly where we are today. It's no wonder that Internet of Things has hit 50 billion devices, connected network devices, right? This is kind of fun. This is how long it took for each of these things to gain 50 million users. So airplanes, 68 years, cars, 62, telephone, 50. Pokemon Go, all-time record winner, 19 days. You've probably heard of ChatGPT. We'll cover that in a few minutes. ChatGPT gained 100 million users in 2 months, okay? But it didn't beat Pokemon Go. Okay, so here's a little visualization for it, and then we'll move on. I thought this was very apropos because it's Lake Michigan. This is computing power if it were water filling up Lake Michigan. So look at it again. Watch the timeline on the upper right. This is that linear deceptive part. And then all of a sudden it hits 2020 and fills up with water. That's the exponential power, computing power we're talking about. And that's the math behind everything that happens from here. You can see, this is from McKinsey. These are all the disruptive technologies powered by that computing power that are already forcing their way into our mainstream. I mean, I say by 2025, but they're effectively here now, and these are all trillion-dollar markets. These are all top 10 or top 20 markets globally already. This chart pretty much says the exact same thing, different source. This is time to exponential technology breakthrough, okay? And you can see that midpoint being around 2025. So we're in for a lot of change just in the next couple of years. Bottom line with Moore's Law, everything will be obsolete in 10 years. Everything will be reinvented in 10 years. And if you're not participating in the reinvention, you're probably dealing with somebody else who is, which may end up putting you at a disadvantage. So now, with the magic of time travel, we're already in the 2030s. Not bad, right? There's a new reality. All this vision about smart cities and smart stuff has become a reality. In my opinion, it's underpinned by blockchain, and we'll talk about why. And it's got this overlay of artificial intelligence, and we'll talk about why. But that's really, to me, what's taking place in the 2030s. Let's break it down. So $1,000 now buys you enough computing power to be equivalent of a human brain. Moore's Law has given way to quantum computing. Moore's Law, by the way, can't go on forever, because at some point it would become subatomic. It will give way to a new paradigm. Almost everybody who studies it thinks it's quantum computing. AI has been in the news. It's really powerful. It's really significant. It deserves the airtime it gets. And yet it hasn't really hit its stride. It's really first inning for AI. So in the 2030s, think about it. Every ChatGPT, every type of ChatGPT, because there's already 1,000 of them, if you weren't aware of that. 1,000, just in the last 2 months. Network together, talking to each other, making each other stronger. That's what we're talking about in the 2030s. Internet of Things, which I thought was the biggest thing of all time. Turns out I was wrong. Turns into the Internet of everything. Okay? Mobility as a service. Where do you want to go? When do you want to go there? Got you covered. 3D printing has a big place in our 2030s future. Energy and how we power what we do. I mean, it's the electrification of everything, if you haven't noticed, right? That's a big deal. I'll talk more about Gen Alpha and Gen Beta later. Right now we're in the Gen Y, Gen Z, millennial era. But in the 2030s, Gen Alpha, which are the babies being born today, will have the spending power. They will be the consumers of choice. They become the decision makers and the politicians of the day. Nothing could be more important to this presentation, if you're really going to talk about the future, than Gen Alpha, okay? And blockchain. Paper currency, I wish it would just go away, just me. But blockchain is going to help us get there with that and a whole bunch of other things. As I said, quantum computing comes next. By the 2030s, something called quantum advantage will have been achieved. What that means is it will be cheaper to use quantum computing to solve a particular problem than traditional computing. That's when it becomes superior. and when it's commonplace and everybody has access to it and can use it. Again, in the 2030s, data is the new oil. So what are you doing about your data today? Are you giving it to Facebook and Twitter for free? Not charging them for it, I don't think. Do you wish you were? Because they're going to make money on it. What are you doing with your data? Because data is the new oil. You see on the right, that's 5G. And 5G, when 5G hits its stride in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and it will, we'll create 10 to 100 times more data than we already are creating. And we're creating, well, let's just talk about it. Well, let me start with a quote. Information is the oil of the 21st century, and the analytics of that data is the combustion engine. I think that's pretty hard-hitting. Like I was saying, data is everywhere. We're all putting out a data footprint every day of between 5 and 10 gigabytes, every person in this room, just on average, okay? The chart on the right, I was studying it and I was looking at it and I'm trying to figure out, like these are really impressive numbers, and then one really jumped out at me. And it's the one I put the box around, TikTok. 167 million videos watched on TikTok in 1 minute, 1 single minute of every day. And by the way, I don't even have TikTok, so I'm not contributing to that. That's my daughter. Okay. Every single day, just to make the point, 3 times per second, we're producing the same amount of data that the Library of Congress has in its entire print collection. So as long as it took me to say it, we just created a whole new Library of Congress, again and again, every day, relentlessly. It's an insane amount of data, okay? By the way, I'm not going to dwell on it for the moment, but privacy is officially dead. It's not my fault. It probably died in like 1987, but it's just easily going away. People who do things and don't realize they're on video, it just makes me go, really? You didn't know? You didn't know there was a video camera in that stairway or in that alley, or when you jumped on the car on Michigan Avenue, which just happened by my house over the weekend in Chicago? Okay, so AI hits a stride, like I was talking about. Why? How? Well, one of the net benefits, global GDP, skyrockets because of it. If it goes up $15 trillion because of AI, that's the equivalent of one of the biggest markets in the entire world, okay? It's staggering. This is an interesting guy, James Whitaker. You may not know him, but he's responsible for your browser. Whether you use Chrome or whether you use Microsoft Explorer, his team did both. I got to spend a weekend with him at a speakers conference, a real estate speakers conference, and he's a speaker like I am now, and he's pretty controversial. And we were sitting at a table like this, small group of us, and we're debating the meaningful, disruptive technologies, and we're talking about blockchain, and we're talking about automation, and we're talking about robotics, and we're talking about autonomous vehicles. And he just got indignant, and he said, "You guys are stupid." And we're like, "Excuse me? Who are you?" Like one of those? He said, "It's about AI. AI is the most disruptive technology there is because it layers on everything that you're talking about, and it layers on everything else. So there's AI, and then there's everything else." And he literally said this to my face, and I love this quote, even though I didn't really care for James. Okay, so how many people think electricity or fire is a big deal, right? We can't do much without electricity anymore. Fire gives us the ability to heat things, right? I think they're pretty important. And Sundar says AI is right up there with it. That's how profound it is, right? So about ChatGPT, how many people have used it? Are you getting the hang of it? It takes a little while to get the hang of it, doesn't it? Right? It's pretty cool. You can't have a presentation like this without talking about ChatGPT. So I figured the best way to do it is to let the experts tell you. So I'm going to play a little video for you.
22, on the last day of November, ChatGPT was revealed to the world. In a matter of days, it became a viral sensation. But how did that happen? And exactly what is ChatGPT? OpenAI ChatGPT is a chatbot created as an advancement in the artificial intelligence industry. Behind its knowledge lies a massive amount of data, including books, articles, and web pages. ChatGPT doesn't just store all this data, it analyzes it. Basically, it thinks and acts like a human. It can understand various requests, effectively communicate in 90 different languages, and even recall details of an ongoing conversation. And then it runs past the competing tools by being accessible for free. There are thousands of examples of how to use ChatGPT already. You can make it write a cover letter for a new job, ask for an essay, give it a math problem. You can give ChatGPT a snippet of programming code to fix, and it will find the issue. Besides technical questions, you can go the creative route too, and request a poem in the style of Shakespeare. ChatGPT will come up with perfectly rhyming lines. So what if you ask it to come up with a way to hack a website? It will say no. But here's the issue. While ChatGPT can decline harmful requests, it's not foolproof. There already have been ChatGPT examples of people getting around the restrictions with creative prompts, which could lead to things like cybercriminals exploiting the system to create ChatGPT malware. It's only natural that such a technological advancement will bring problems alongside solutions, and questions alongside answers. Will ChatGPT replace Google? Will it take over human jobs? That's a topic for another time.
All right, there you have it, ChatGPT, right? Elon Musk is scared as heck about AI. So what did he do about it? He started his own GPT. This is breaking news. This is this week. I don't know if you saw the announcement. He's launched something called Truth GPT to be sure that ChatGPT or OpenAI doesn't accidentally annihilate human beings, and he's dead serious about that. Little frightening. All right, moving on. So, still in the 2030s, blockchain has become bigger than the internet. It drives more things. It has more business purpose. It's more secure. It's more dispersed. It's more real time. It takes the power out of the hands of a few and decentralizes it across all the stakeholders. Imagine your medical records on blockchain. You control it, you decide who you share it with, you go into a new doctor's office. Don't give me the clipboard, don't make me fill out another piece of paper. Here's my medical records, I authorize you to participate in my data. And when you're not my doctor anymore, I withdraw it from you. Doesn't have to really be any harder than that, does it? Okay? But supply chain, smart contracts, tokenization, and these are some real estate applications. Voting, you want to solve all the voting issues in the United States? Just use blockchain, right? This isn't about Bitcoin, it's not about crypto. People think they're synonymous, and they're not. It's wonderful technology. Everything will be tokenized, everything, and connected to blockchain one day. Period, end of story. That's why it'll be bigger than the internet. Hard to fathom, I know. Look how big the ecosystem already is, right? Every one of these companies is working on a use case. And they're doing it with a profit motive. You want more blockchain? There's an entire country, Liberland, in Central Europe, dedicated to blockchain. Everything they do, every facet of their being, every facet of their operations, every facet of their existence is built on blockchain. It's not an experiment. It's already happening. It's a real place. And yes, I am a passport holder, $100. Okay, so I'm serious. Just check it out online. It's an era of digital twins. It could be a medical digital twin of yourself. Like, wouldn't it make sense to simulate treatment if you need something significant? You need a triple bypass? I hope you don't. But if you do, wouldn't you want to simulate that for a minute and make sure the doctors understand your chemistry, your physiology, your reaction to it before you do it? What about an entire region? What about Orlando, who says, you know, Orlando's getting really congested. And if we add one more mega project, that impacts all the other mega projects. Let's model it. Let's build a twin. Let's see what happens before we authorize it. What about the European Space Agency? They're modeling the entire planet so they can predict climate change. What if they could tell you the storm was coming 30 days before it came? Well, that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? That's a little bit more than the 3 minutes notice we get from the tornado sirens in the Midwest, right? Although those save lives, so I'm not knocking it. What about Milwaukee? What about the Milwaukee County? What about the upper Midwest region? What about a digital twin here? Okay, the truth economy arrives. What shade of truth do you want? There's a channel for it. It's no longer controlled by 2 or 3 networks. That's probably a presentation for another day. 3D printing hits a stride in the 2030s. We're not talking about a tooth. We're not talking about a chess piece. Okay, those are good. Those are fun. We're talking about places to live. We're talking about affordable housing. We're talking about food. I know how gross this looks, but if it tastes good and everyone else is doing it, you think you'll try it? Raise your hand if you're willing to try 3D printed food. Have you ever tried it? Anybody? No? Oh, there's a restaurant in London you can go. Everything there is 3D printed. The food, the chairs, the forks, the table, everything there. I can't wait to go there. Okay, I don't have a problem with it. Extreme mobility, right? But think about this for a minute. Not just what we're used to at surface level, in the air, below the ground, and at surface level, in 3D. So take a look. Here's 200 people in Seattle. This is downtown Seattle. And if you take the cars off the street and you use alternative forms of transportation, this is what happens. I love this little GIF. I'll let it run one more time so you can see it. Okay? How many people know virtual takeoff and landing, VTOL? Okay? That's a thing. Will be a thing between drones and air taxis and other types of flying vehicles. This just shows how you could get from San Jose, from the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco to San Jose for about the same price as an Uber, but save tons of time, right? Coming your way. Imagine if you could just go back and forth between Milwaukee and Chicago. It's within range. Go to Chicago for lunch, be back by 2 o'clock. It's really not that far-fetched at all, okay? Not just air taxis, not just cars, pretty much any vehicle you can think of, be electric, be autonomous. Imagine a construction site working 24/7 instead of 8 hours a day. Imagine how fast you could build something. Think of the safety associated with that. No people. Autonomous. New satellite networks is really important. We work off a GPS system right now, and it has 3 points of triangulation, and it's pretty good, right? We'd get by. But imagine if you had 15 points of triangulation. Imagine if you had 30, or the precision you'd have, and it's coming. It's already in the works. It's budgeted, it's funded. The liftoffs, the blastoffs are already scheduled. So by the 2030s, it's here. It's a game changer. How do we power all this? My bet's on solar. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I am pretty confident the raw material, the sun, supplies enough energy to us for every person on the earth combined to consume limitlessly. So all we have to do is harness it, right? It's not wind, it's not geothermal, it's not combustible, right? It's not hydrogen. Everyone has a potential, but 80% of the people live within that allocable solar band. Or all you have to do is look here at this chart. When the yellow bars, which are solar, get bigger than all the other forms of energy combined, it's become a solar era, and that's predicted to happen somewhere between 2030 and 2035. These are all the countries committed to getting rid of gasoline-powered combustion engine vehicles. Battery storage is catching up to it. That's really the last piece of the puzzle. So I think solar. I think solar is a big winner for us over time. It ends up being a very low cost, no cost, abundant proposition, and it's a really important point. Now in the 2040s, what's happened? Convergence. All the things we're talking about is just the way things are. And we can't remember a time when it wasn't that way. They've all converged to be normalized, regular, ordinary. By 2042, that same $1,000 now buys you enough computing power equal to every person on Earth combined. $1,000. Imagine what you could do with that computing power in your pocket. Singularity arrives. I'll talk about that in a second. At this point, everything's as a service on demand. What do you want? Where do you want it? When do you want it? How do you want it? Scary thought. Virtual reality is equal to reality. You can't distinguish between the two, and yet you'll need to. You'll need new tools. We all will. It's really one that people struggle with. Perfect data, perfect markets. We all have the same information. Want to buy it? Yes or no? It's not a negotiation at that point. It's all the same stuff. Again, the energy, we're probably interplanetary at this point. I don't really want to talk about that today, but profound implications, as you can imagine. The singularity, how many people know what this is? This is Ray Kurzweil again. This is Ray Kurzweil, who, by the way, has an 87% accuracy rate on his predictions of the future. And if you click that link or if you Google it, you'll see what I'm talking about. And not just 2 or 3 or 4 things. He's put himself out there several hundred times. And when he's wrong, he's usually off by an iteration, but he's not really wrong, right? He's wrong by a year, or he's wrong by 10 years, but he's actually not wrong. I mean, he really is the predictor of the future. And what he says is, by the time we get to the 2040s, we'll be able to multiply human intelligence a billionfold, which is what I was just showing you a second ago. That's singular in nature. It's the only time in history that will happen. Computers are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and at some point, they're going to go inside our bodies. And people and machines become one. It's not something that I look forward to. It kind of creeps me out. I don't mind saying that. But think about taking a little pill. But it's a computer. It's a machine. It's just like taking any other pill that you take. Makes you stronger, healthier, smarter, better. Everyone else does it. It's proven to be safe. The FDA says it's okay, right? Like at that point, people and machines have become one. And that's what he's talking about. We have super regional clusters. We'll talk about this in just a second for the upper Midwest here. But people can go anywhere. Computing is ubiquitous. Energy is free or low cost. You can go and do anything anywhere. So where are you going to go? I don't think it's Chicago versus Milwaukee. I think it's Chicago and Milwaukee together. That's what I think. Again, Gen Alpha is the dominant. First of all, it's the largest generation ever. Way bigger than baby boomers, which was the previous largest generation ever. These are babies born between roughly 2000 and 2025. This chart says between 2010 and 2024. Technically, that's a generation, right? But Gen Alpha dominates the landscape in the 2040s. They are the decision makers, and if we aren't planning a future for them, we're missing a huge, huge, huge opportunity. And Gen Beta simply is the generation that comes after Alpha. But people don't know that much about Gen Beta since they don't exist yet. They can make all the guesses they want. Climate change is a thing. Again, that's a different presentation, but it really bodes well for the upper Midwest, and in particular, this community. If you live on the coasts of the United States and you're underwater, you have to move. So where are you going to go? And what do we have here? Who knows the number one thing? I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Fresh water. Bingo. That's it. Beautiful. Great job. Okay, are there X factors? You bet. Geopolitics is a thing, right? If one country wants to invade another country, or think of it like this. If a country exists on their ability to sell oil, and that funds everything that they do, all their social systems, it keeps peace in the nation, and they lose that ability. Not that oil's going away, but oil at $100 a barrel is not sustainable for the rest of eternity. It may end up being $10 a barrel or $20 a barrel based on supply and demand. And at that point, if you lose 90% of your GDP, do you have civil unrest? And what happens next? So is it an X factor? You bet. Is cybersecurity an X factor? Of course. The big one is that tech change is on this relentless exponential curve, and social change, our ability to process it and accept it. In business change, our ability to generate an ROI on it. And political change, our ability to legislate it, is way slower. They're not congruent. That's the biggest X factor of all. Speaking of cybersecurity, issue of the decade, in terms of how much worse it's going to get. It's a race between the good guys and the bad guys, good people and bad people, I should say. Why? Because the enemy knows the system and they keep hacking it, right? That's really the point. We all live with electricity to power our devices and cloud access for our work product, our photos, our most valuable stuff. What happens when our access to either one, electricity or the cloud, is out not for an hour, which is frustrating as heck. We've all probably had that, right? But for 3 weeks or 3 months. What do? It's an X factor. Okay, so I'm going to try to finish up here with 10 things specific to the Milwaukee County and the Midwest region But to simply put, the best way to predict the future, which is tough business, is actually to create it. So join me. Please help me create the future. Whoever said water was spot on. It is the number one most important thing for Milwaukee County. It's your number one amenity. It's your number one attraction. And it only gets more important over time as water becomes more scarce elsewhere. Think about what's happening in the Rocky Mountain region or in Colorado River, right? And they're going to cut off water to Phoenix and California on certain days. How long are you going to live there in light of all the other things that are happening? Where are you going to go? So I really think this is an important point. Number two, we have Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. We have the Inflation Reduction Act. We've never had access to more opportunity, more money, more programs, more grants to build infrastructure than we have today. This is not a political statement. This is a fact. The time is now to lay the infrastructure groundwork for 2050. And if you don't, you are going to be surpassed by a city or a community that has the vision to do it. We're not just talking about bridges, roadways. Those are important. Yeah, let's fix those. As they say in Michigan, fix the damn roads, right? I get that. We're talking about expanding Milwaukee Airport. We're talking about creating a VTOL takeoff and landing spot downtown. What about a spaceport? I'll let that resonate for a minute. What about air traffic control? That's going to be a big thing with all these new devices in the sky, right? Connectivity, essential. Data throughput, data storage. We're about to create 10 to 100 times more data than we're already creating. And I already threw out some staggering numbers about that. But when 5G comes, is Milwaukee County ready? How about power? As I go around the country, I have an energy company. I also do real estate development. I'm only investing in sites or properties that have abundant power adjacent. And if it doesn't, I'm just simply moving on, no matter how attractive the opportunity is. And what I'm finding is there's a shortage of power. It's not something that the power companies want to talk about, but it's already happening. The allocable available power is already in short supply. Okay? Invest in infrastructure. What do we really need to do here? We need to step back from the urban planning process and pretty much reinvent it. I'm thinking data scientists. I'm thinking user experience designers. When did they ever factor into urban planning before? But they need to today to make it to 2050. It needs to be done in 3 dimensions, like I said, air, subsurface, ground. What about all the office space that's never going to be used again? Some of it will, but not as office space. What do we do with that? What about aging in place? What about co-living? What about urban farming? What about public spaces? When was the last time Milwaukee or Milwaukee County delivered to you something magnificent to last for centuries? What about Airbnbs? I can go anywhere. I can stay for a day or a month. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the county? And again, there's the demographics to think about. Data. I talked about data before. Data is the new oil. That's true for people. It's true for businesses. But guess who else? Counties, cities. If it were me, I wouldn't approve a project or fund a project if it didn't adequately provide for data collection and data processing. That's just me. I would require the use of digital twins. I would simulate it before I'd allow it. We have the tools. We have the computing power. We have the graphics capability. We have the analytics. We have the software. We have the coders. I would be looking at everything saying, how does AI fit into this equation? How does blockchain fit into this equation? And if I haven't asked those 2 questions, I'm kind of derelict in duty. It's just my opinion. By the way, you're going to need new revenues to pay for a lot of this stuff. Data monetization's right at the top of the list, like it or not. It's a reasonable approach to funding big ticket stuff. But first you have to have the data. Upskilling. So good news, bad news. How many people enjoyed their learning years? I did. Those were pretty good years, right? It's back to school for all of us. If we don't learn some new skills, if we don't upskill, from the factory worker on the floor to the CEO in the C-suite, we are at a disadvantage. So, is this an opportunity for Milwaukee County, City of Milwaukee, to step up and say, my constituents, my stakeholders need this, and I'm going to help provide it. I'm going to partner with Marquette. I'm going to partner with University of Wisconsin. I'm going to partner with, and I'm going to deliver this. And I'm going to make it lifelong, because I know that one time isn't going to be enough. By the way, AI isn't going to take our jobs. A person using AI is. And there's a big difference. Think about that for a second. Okay, energy. So everybody's creating these net zero mandates by 2050, and I'm sort of rolling my eyes going, first of all, 2050 is a long ways away. Second of all, right, you could do it by 2030, so it's kind of a yawner when you tell me 2050. But number two, what about net positive? What about on-site energy creation? Why aren't we talking about that? And that's what I'm talking about here. Climate change is real. Decarbonization is a thing. Electrification of everything is absolutely 100% a thing. The current state of minerals to make batteries, lithium ion, right? Not sustainable. It's going to have to come from other types of minerals and storage. This region is powered by coal. Everybody know that? Coal is cheap. That's why we do it. It's the way we've done it for 100 years. I get that. It's about the most horrible thing we can do to admit to the planet right now. At some point, this region has to look at their coal and stop doing it. What they do next from there could be nuclear, could be other forms of power. Doesn't have to be solar, but it's time to step back and have a look. Okay? This is something that I coined for a retail conference. Actually, it was a Bob Hess, my friend Bob Hess there. This was a Newmark retail conference. I can't even remember, in Newport Beach years ago, and retail was falling off the cliff, and everybody was freaking out. And so I came up with this acronym. DICE stands for differentiation, inspiration, community, and experience. Differentiation, inspiration, community, and experience. And if you have all four of those things in the way you deliver your product or service, you have a fighting chance to be sticky, to have staying power, to make money, to be around for a while. But if you don't have all four of those things, I might try you once, and then I'm going to go try something different. It's experiential. The point is everything is experiential, right? And that's a really important point here. This is where the user experience designers come in. Anybody know any UX designers? I would find some fast, employ them, partner with them. We're going to have more time. Sports, arts, humanities, public spaces. I'm not making any political statements at all, but DEI. And it's unfortunate, I just want to say that everything that can be weaponized politically seems to have been in the last several years. I hate that. I don't know how you feel about it. DEI is not a political statement. Diverse voices at a table make the table stronger. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. ESG is a real thing. It's not a political statement. It doesn't mean I'm this or I'm that. These are all part of that experience. And I hope you'll stop and think about that for a minute. And it's really important that you tell your story. For every dollar you spend on infrastructure, you should set $1 aside to tell the story about why you're doing the infrastructure and why you should come to Milwaukee County to check it out. A $1 for $1. Okay? Let me go back. Just really quick, this is my own personal experience with DICE. On the right is the Apple store in downtown Chicago, Michigan Avenue. Tell me that's not experiential. It's different. It's inspirational. There's a community of people who like going there. I like bringing people back with me. And every time I go, it's a different experience. That's got stickiness. On the left, that's my family and I checking in to a hotel in Las Vegas for Christmas a few years ago. We were greeted by Pepper the robot. That's who checked us in. That was before COVID. That's experiential. That doesn't happen every day. It's cool. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Number 8, we talked about super regional synergies. Here's a map that was published recently about what the country might be like in 2050. This is how we're going to have high-speed connections. These are the regions that are likely to compete with each other. Again, the point is you have ubiquitous computing, you have hypermobility, you have cheap, affordable power. You can go anywhere and do anything at any time. So where are you going to go? How long are you going to go there? Who are you going to go with? How long are you staying? And that's what we're talking about, okay? It's Midwest competing against the Southeast and against the West and against the Northeast. Because once you go, you're probably going to be there for a while. You're not going there for a day, even though you could. I don't know. That's just me. Again, no political statements. All I want to say is your vote matters. You have to vote. You have to hold your politicians accountable. I don't care who you like or why. I don't. I make no judgments. Don't judge me. Every time, at every level. The Supreme Court has signaled it's for the states to figure out. It's no longer the federal government that's going to set all the policies. So at the state level, at the city level, at the county level, the digital divide in this context, I just want to say, is when we elect, again, I don't want to use any names, we elect people who are 80-year-old and older and expect them to make policy for Generation Alpha. It's a disconnect. It's a digital divide. It just is. They're great human beings. They mean well. I like them. I'd have coffee or beers with them. I just don't want them to represent me in office anymore. They're disconnected from the future completely. And it's a problem. And it's getting worse, not better. That's all I really want to say about that. Geopolitics is a thing. It's also I said the judiciary, right? Judges, that's all part of it, right? Last but not least, public-private partnerships. There's no way the county or the city can do it all by themselves. There's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's other stakeholders in the region. They stand to benefit. If people come to this region between now and 2050 because it's got fresh water and a high quality of life and a low cost of living and a low natural disaster risk, and good schools, and good people, and safe communities. Because it's going to have all those things. And they will come. I promise you they're coming. Only if you build that infrastructure and a vision and a community persona that brings them here. At least in Michigan, you get pure Michigan. What do you get in Milwaukee County? What's the slogan? What's the tagline? What's the brand? What's the persona? By the way, my big idea, free internet for everybody. Public-private partnership. Every business, every resident, every visitor, every worker, every educator, every politician, free. Not just a portion of the city, not just a portion of the county. Why can't we do that? The entire country of Finland, the entire country, free internet for everybody. Did you know that? And not just internet, robust, safe, strong internet. I was there in January. This is a thing. Why couldn't we do that here? Sorry, I don't mean to rant and rave. We need to pay for it. Here's ways to pay for it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through everything, but there's all kinds of opportunities. How much money are we generating from VTOL taxes right now? Right? How much will we generate in 2030 or 2040? How about congestion taxes? Stop driving into the city. There's other ways to come into the city. If you want to really drive to the city, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay for it. What about dynamic pricing? Heavy traffic times, it's more. Light traffic times, it's less. Why can't we do that? We have the technology. There's other ways to pay for it, is my point. So what can you do? I get this question a lot. Like I said earlier, the best way to predict the future is to help create it. Self-educate, pick one thing that you're interested in, talk about it, make it a passion project, prioritize it, budget for it. It does probably cost a little bit of money. Participate, be accountable. And if anybody says we tried that in 1987, run for the hills. At the end of the day, it's about change management. When it's more painful to stay the same than it is to change. I love this quote. I'll let you read it. It's about resilience, right? This is an oldie but a goodie. It's like a Moore's Law. It holds true. It's about resilience. Let's be resilient together. And most of all, by the way, more wealth will be created between now and 2050 than at any other time in recorded history. Why can't we all get a little slice of it along the way? Fortune favors the brave. Thank you all very much for listening to me. It's been great to be here. Thank you all very much.